This is me again for the first country of the day. First one of the day being Central Asia again. And yeah, got two more countries in Central Asia after today. So yeah, here we go. So yeah, as today's country is Tajikistan. The country that is pinned up against Afghanistan, which is way more famous at the moment. Has been more famous at the moment for being a little war-torn, to say the least. So yeah, here we go. As Tajikistan, officially known as the Republic of Tajikistan or Tajikistan, or Jamhuri Tajikistan. As Tajikistan is also spelled Tajikistan, and is a country lying at the heart of what is now Central Asia. It is bordered by Kyrgyzstan on the north, China in the east, Afghanistan to the south, Uzbekistan to the west and northwest. As Tajikistan includes the Gorno-Badakhshan or Mountain Badakhshan Autonomous Region, which was the capital with its capital at Karun or Karag. As Tajikistan encompasses a small amount of land among the five Central Asian states like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. Yeah. But in terms of elevation, it surpasses all of them, as including more in higher mountains and other countries in the region. As Tajikistan was a constituent or union republic of the Soviet Union from 1929 till 1991, with the capital being Dushanbe. As there are several ethnic ties outside influences that complicate Tajikistan's national identity with greater extent than in other Central Asian republics, as the Tajik people share more close kinship and their language with a much larger population of the same nationality living in northeastern Afghanistan. His population also includes a large proportion of Dari, which is a dialect of Persian intelligible to Tajiks. And despite sectarian differences, most Tajiks are Sunni Muslims, while Iranians are predominantly Shiites or Shia, as there is a slight difference between them. As Tajiks also have strong ties to the cultures and people of Iran. And the Tajik and Persian languages are closely related and mutually intelligible, as the Tajik centuries-old economic symbiosis with Oasis-dwelling Uzbeks are also somewhat confusing in the expression of a distinctive Tajik national identity. Since the early years of independence, Tajikistan has been racked by conflict between the government and the Islamic oppression and its allies. As the Tajiks are direct descendants from the Iranian people, his continuous presence in Central Asia and northern Afghanistan is attested to the middle of the first millennium BC, and the ancestors of the Tajiks constituted the core of the ancient population of Kharazm and Bactria, which form a part of Transoxania or Sogdiana, which were included in the empires of Persia and Alexander the Great, and they intermingled with later invaders like the Kushans and Hephthalites in the 1st to 6th centuries AD. And over the course of time, the Eastern Iranian dialect was used by the ancient Tajiks, and eventually gave way to Farsi, which is a Western dialect spoken in Iran and Afghanistan. As the Arab conquest of Central Asia that began in the mid-7th century brought Islam to the region, but the tribal feuds weakened the Arabs, and with the rise of Samin in 819 to 999, the Tajiks came under the rule of an Iranian dynasty, and the first Turkic invaders from the northeast seized the area of Transoxana in 990. And because both conqueror and conquerors were Muslims, in time many Tajiks, especially those in the valleys of the Sardaya and Amudaya, became Turkicized, and the result of the transforming of a formerly pro-Iranian land into a Turkestan. The name Tajik, originally given to the Arabs for the local population as they came to be replied by Turkic invaders, and overlords to the elements of a sedentary population that continued to speak the Iranian languages. Until the mid-18th century, the Tajiks were part of the Emirate of Bukhara, an emirate being kind of like a state, like an Arabic state. But then the Afghans conquered the land south and southwest of the Amudaya, which the Tajik population included the city of Belk, which was an ancient Tajik cultural center. As the Russian conquest of Central Asia in the 1860s and 70s brought a number of Tajiks in the Shan and Fergana valleys under the direct government of Russia, while the Emirate of Bukhara in effect became a Russian protectorate in 1868. And after the Russian Revolution of 1917, a considerable proportion of the Tajik people were included in the Turkestan ASSR, established in April of 1918. In August of 1920, the revolution was extended to the Khanate of Bukhara, which embraced most of the territory occupied by modern Tajikistan, and the Bukharan People's Soviet Republic was declared in October of 1920. And in early of 1921, the Soviet army captured Dushanbe and Kulyab, as Tajikistan was the scene of the Basmachi Revolution in 1922-23, as the rebel bands under Ibrahim Bek operated in the eastern Bukhara until 1931, as the Tajik ASSR was created as a part of the Uzbek Soviet Socialist Republic, shortened to SSR, in 1925, and in January of 25, a special Pamirs region was created out of Kyrgyz and Tajik parts of Pamirs. In December of 1925, this region was renamed Gorno-Badakhshan Autonomous Region, and in 1929, the status of the Tajik ASSR was raised to that of a Soviet Socialist Republic. And change in status marked the first time that the Tajik people had their own state, but it wasn't an independent one, as it was still part of the Soviet Union. And as a full-fledged member of the Soviet Union, on the developed mountainous Tajik SSR underwent a social and economic transformation, as a sense of nationhood was instilled in the Tajik people, partially by B.G. Gafurov, leader of the Tajikistan Communist Party from 1946 to 56, and a historian respected in the West, as the dams were constructed for electric power generations and generators and irrigation, and industry was developed in the Baksh River Valley, as the Soviet healthcare and education was gradually introduced into the Republic, as the village of Dushanbe, known as Stalinabad, from 1929 to 1961. It's really goddamn Stalin when you thought Stalingrad wasn't enough. Was transformed into a modern capital, boasting the Tajik State University in 1951, and the Tajik Academy of Science in 1948, and such progress it still had its drawback, as Tajikistan remained the poorest republic in the Soviet Union, within the Soviet Union. As a disintegration of the Soviet Union in 1991 led to a somewhat reluctant declaration of independence on September 9, 1991, and once independence was achieved, turmoil degenerated into a civil war, played a new country as communists fought to retain power in the face of oppression from an alliance of Islamic and democratic forces. As the presidential elections of November 1991 was won by Tajikistan's former communist strongman, Rahman Nabiev, and in March of 1992 a massive non-violent demonstrations protesting the dismissal of the opposition elements began in Dushanbe, and after the government forces opened fire on the demonstration in April, violence soon spread to the southern city of Korob and elsewhere, and opposition forces drove Nabiev from office in September and briefly took power, but in November the government led by Omar Romanov, who was still leader there and has had a name change since then, in March of 2007, to Emomali Rahmon, and backed by Russian troops had regained control, ending the first phase of the civil war as a mass exodus to Afghanistan followed, as sporadic fighting continued as the Islamic fundamentalist forces and their allies, now based in Afghanistan, continued to launch attacks on the Russian and Tajik troops guarding the border. And by the mid-1990s, the fightings had left tens of thousands dead and had displaced more than 500,000 people. In 1994, the government and rebel elements reached a tenuous ceasefire, and Romanov was subsequently elected as president, but sporadic fighting continued in 1997 until June 1997, when a peace agreement brokered by the United Nations, Russia and Iran essentially ended the war and produced some order in a state that characterized much of Tajik life since the country's independence, as an endemic political unrest had deleterious effects on the country's economy, which was dependent on large part on foreign aid. As the following agreement, rebels began to re-enter political and social life throughout small groups of dissenters continued to engage in attacks on governmental targets, as Romanov was elected to another term in office in 1999, which, with the support of some of his former adversaries, the flow of militants from Afghanistan slowed after the overthrow of the Taliban in late 2001, but smaller numbers of determined Islamic extremists continued to cross the border, disrupting life and commerce in Tajikistan and other Central Asian states. Moreover, after the fall of the Taliban led to an upswing of narcotics productions in Afghanistan, and Tajikistan soon became a major transit point for Afghanistan heroin and opium headed towards Europe and beyond. As it's kind of hard to man a border with not a lot of money and mountain, with like a long border with Afghanistan, which is essentially mountains. And after his electoral victory in 1999, Romanov sought to establish the authority of the central government throughout Tajikistan, wresting some regional warlords, carrying out a campaign to disarm non-state militias, and also began what many observers saw as a drift towards authoritarianism, using the presidency to increase his personal power and steer a country away from political pluralism, called for by the 1997 peace talk agreement. As the US led war against the Taliban in Afghanistan in 2001, provided Romanov with a favourable climate for a crackdown against the Islamic opposition in Tajikistan, and he accused the Islamic Renaissance Party of Tajikistan, IRPT, with which, under the peace agreement, was one of the opposition groups entitled to a percentage of government posts, of extremism, and began dismissing members of the party from their official positions. And the party itself, however, remained legal in Tajikistan. Meanwhile, Romanov began to install his extended family and personal associates into dominant roles in politics and business in Tajikistan. And in 2003, Romanov's position was strengthened when voters approved a referendum on a package of constitutional amendments that Romanov was requested as necessary to modernise the country, and included amendments loosening presidential term limits, which made it possible for Romanov to hold the presidency until 2020, and the suppression of opposition parties and muzzling of independent media intensified. In the run-up to the legislative elections in February of 2005, and independent newspapers were closed and opposition parties were reported that local elections boards had refused to take place many of their candidates on their ballots. And the first result was a lopsided victory for Romanov, People's Democratic Party, which won 52 of the 63 seats in the Assembly of Representatives, as Romanov was easily elected to another 7-year term as president, which with nearly 80% of the vote in November 2006, as the IRPT, the largest opposition party, had not fielded a presidential candidate after a long-time party head Syed Abdullah Nouri died earlier in that year, and several other opposition parties nominated candidates, but the parties were too small and poorly known to pose a threat to Romanov. And in March 2007, Romanov dropped the Russian of suffix from his surname as an acknowledgement of Tajik identity, and the change identified a trend of Tajikistanization of surnames that followed by many senior members of the government. As Rahman won another term as president on November 6, 2013, as a coalition of opposition parties and groups, including the IRPT, had attempted to nominate a candidate, but harassment by the authorities prevented her name from reaching the ballot, as 5 other parties were able to get their candidate on the ballot, but were not well known enough to receive any significant support. And in September 2015, the government banned the IRPT, until then the only large legal Islamist party in the former Soviet republics of Central Asia, and placed it on a list of extremist and terrorist organisations. And several other parties' leaders were later charged with having orchestrated a coup attempt in 2015, and were sentenced to life imprisonment in 2016. And in a case that IRPT supporters and human rights groups denounced as politically motivated. And in May 2016, the voters in Tajikistan approved a referendum on a package of constitutional changes that included lifting term limits for President Rahman and lowering the minimum age of presidential candidates from 35 to 30. Amendments further strengthened Rahman's family already tight grip on power, and amendments concerning the presidential term limits had been written to apply only to Rahman, based on his special status as leader of a nation, granted by the Assembly of Representatives in 2015, and the amendment concerning the age of presidential candidates was widely seen as a way to clear a path for the presidency for Rahman's son Rustam, who would be in his early 30s by the time of 2020 presidential elections came round. And another amendment was that the referendum banned all political parties based on religion, And yeah, that's kind of like a bit of geography and the history of Tajikistan for you. And it's like, don't go around completely hating Tajikistan for being repressive, as there's likely many good points about it. Tajikistan at the moment. But yeah, just goes to show that a lot of what goes happening on and on, so like bad things will only be seen. Yeah. And moving on to the language. The Tajiks are an Indo-European speaking people whose forebears have inherited Central Asia since the dawn of civilization and are most closely related to the people of Iran. And the majority of Tajiks live outside the borders of what is now known as Tajikistan, which has a population of about 6.3 million, as they also live in cities of Samarkand and Bukhara in Uzbekistan, in southern Kazakhstan and western China, but the largest number of Tajiks live in Afghanistan with a population of about 10 million. And the Tajik language belongs to the subgroup of Persian languages of southern southwestern Iranian group of the Indo-European family of language. It is, as the language has formed the basis of the Farsi and some of the eastern Iranian languages spoken in the 9th to 10th centuries, and to refer to the language as Farsi or Dari. Farsi or Dari, as the language is a common historical foundations of three contemporary literary languages, as it's Tajik in Tajikistan, Farsi in Iran, and Dari in Afghanistan. As the history of the development of Farsi Dari language falls into the following stages of ancient Persian language from around 10th, 9th century BC to 3rd to 4th century BC. Then there's Middle Persian language from the 3rd to 4th century BC to the 7th or 8th century, 7th and 8th century AD. Then there's the New Persian language, which is like Farsi Dari from like the 9th, 10th century AD to present day, and the first mention of the ancient Persian language refers to the 9th century BC. But however, the indigenous written manuscripts of the period date back to the 5th and 6th century BC. As ancient Persian language, which was a mother tongue for the Achaemenid kings native of Fars in Persia. Fars, Persia, which has been used as a literary and official language of the Achaemenid Empire from the 4th to 6th to the 4th century BC. And a few centuries after Alexander the Great's invasion, another subsequent collapse of the Achaemenid Empire, and the Sassanid state, which played an enormous role in the development of the Mid-Persian language, literature and culture, came into being on the territory of Persia during the rule of the Sassanid dynasty, as the Middle language became the language of government, literature and religion, along with the now extinct Avestian language. Survives to the day to stay in two versions, and it is used by Zoroastrian priests living in some parts of the modern Iran and India. And Middle Persian manuscripts have also survived in the Pahlavi script using characters created on the basis of Aramaic writing. However, after the Arab conquest and the expansion of Islam, a considerable part of the corpus of Middle Persian manuscripts was destroyed, and the Farsi Dari language or Farsi was formed under the influence of Eastern dialects of Transoxiana, including the Sogdian dialects, used at the outskirts of the city of Bukhara, the capital of the Samanid state, and therefore reflects some of the features of Eastern Iranian languages and dialects. As a literary, Farsi was ultimately written using a modified version of Arabic script. This was developed in the 9th to 10th centuries, however had 4 additional characters for the sounds not used in the Arab alphabet, and by this time the people of Transoxiana had acquired a degree of political autonomy and the standard using Farsi Dari for official purposes and as a written literary language, as the dialect of Bukhara played an important part of the process. And after the Persian territories had become a part of the Arab Caliphate, Farsi developed under the influence of Arabic. An influence continued throughout several centuries, and accounts of the presence of Arabic words in Farsi vocabulary and later on in the Tajik language. However, Arabic was not only the only language that influenced Farsi, and in AD 962 the Turkic Ghaznavid dynasty was established in Afghanistan, and in 985 the Seljuk Turks moved from the vicinity of Bukhara, and later in 990 the Ghaznavids defeated the Samanids in Khorasan, and the Khanids captured Bukhara, the Samanid capital, and the military conflicts between the various Turkic tribes continued until the 13th century, with Genghis Khan's invasion of Central Asia. Haven't quite ditched him at the moment. Military conflicts between which, whilst during the period of turmoil, Farsi remained the official language of the state, and was adopted by numerous words from the Turkic invaders. The second half of the 19th century witnessed the merger of literary language and with the speech of a Tajik dialect, yet these modifications did not make any considerable impact on the established literary norms being normal. And in the 20th century, the language of the Persian-speaking population of Central Asia acquired a new name, the Tajik language, essentially, and the term is closely related to political events that took place in Central Asian region in the first decade of the 20th century. And in 1924, following the national division of the USSR, the Tajik Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic was formed, and in 1929 was formed into the Tajik SSR, as the Tajik was designated as the state language, and heated arguments developed with the literary language, as a Tajik literary language developed on the basis of Tajik speech on the other hand, and the classic Persian Tajik literary on the other, and gradually the Arab script was replaced by a new alphabet based on the Latin script. But in 1939 it was replaced again by the Cyrillic one. It's like the Cyrillic alphabet being like the Russian alphabet. Kind of like with the Cyrillic one looking something a little like the Russian alphabet. Obviously it varies a little bit from country to country and all. It's like there's no 2 countries are entirely the same and all. No 2 countries are the same and all, and yeah. Moving on to like the last little area that would usually have been legends, I'm going to talk about traditions, as Tajikistan's traditions cover a large part of what is now daily life, from clearing to entertainment to ceremonies and celebrations. And while the people of parts of Tajikistan, people hold their traditions close to like the daily life, meaning that Tajik traditions are not lost to time, as many things can be lost to time and all. As there's people in villages who wear traditional long coats and headscarves, and who dance traditional dances at weddings, and decorate their homes using carpets and Suzani, the same way they've done for like centuries and all that. And traditions of Tajikistan are kind of like a window into like a lifestyle, values and aesthetics of a culture. A great way to know Tajikistan better. As the music and Tajik music and dances were integral part of daily life. Big day life events, to say, are performed at weddings and other ceremonies, and some dances are specific to the different regions, like in the Pamir Mountains and the flatter areas of the Gisar Valley. Other dances and music in Tajikistan tell stories about historical events, other parts of the culture like carpets, weapons and musical instruments. And the performing arts in Tajikistan tell all about legends and stories, and each region has its own art form and its own stories to perform, making performing arts like a unique part of the Tajik culture, as puppets, plays, songs and dances have all survived from like ancient times and are still like a popular part of the traditions in Tajikistan even to this day and all that. And yeah. And to learn more about the puppeteers in Bukhara and all that, the plays are about warriors in the Pamirs and the comedians played at throughout the circus acts, and songs and dance. Yeah, there's a lot of it, and I'll put the links in below to where I found all this. And the Tajik clothing is defined by type of cloth and designs and patterns adorned by various items of clothing. The small caps called taki or kolapush are especially common, and worn by both men and women with different patterns depending on the region and who's wearing the hat. As traditionally Tajik clothing is still worn by many people, especially in regions and smaller villages and all. And it's working in the bigger cities and all that. It's a bit like people might wear something a bit more modern. Might wear something a bit more traditional for celebrations and all that. As there's also rug embroideries and quilts that make up most of the furniture of a traditional Tajik home, which makes them warm and inviting places. In many modern homes there can be more modern furnishings and plenty of traditional homes in Tajikistan still exist where guests are welcome with a full spread of food on a deskarkan and a home full of beautiful textiles and all that. And like the wedding traditions in Tajikistan are a big deal and a mark of tradition and a new style of new life for the couple, as there are plenty of Tajik traditions from courtship through engagements, and weddings are full of festivities, and there are plenty of ways that Tajik weddings and traditions ensure a happy life and plenty of luck for the new family and couple and all. And yeah, that is Tajikistan. Some like the good points and bad points all of Tajikistan, as like nowhere is perfect and all. And yeah, bye for now.